Well, good afternoon and good morning to one and all. I just realized we're straddling that ever sensitive time zone issue and delighted to have everyone join. Tom Dickson here with Financial Experts Network, and also on screen is Fitz Gilbert, our featured speaker today. Fritz, so delighted to have you. Thank you so much for joining us and really sharing your time and all the good work that you're doing. And again, retirement manifesto. Let me get that out, and Fritz, you can explain a little more. So this question I don't have in the pop-up window from GoToWebinar, the magical pop-up window, but I thought this one would be just a little bit of fun. Again, what of the following are true? Which of the following statements, I would edit that, are true of retirement? A, time still flies by. B, systems for tracking expenses and assets remain valuable. C, having a purpose is really important. Academic teachings on sustainable withdrawal or drawdown rates, etc., actually work. Haha. Or E, all of the above. So if you want to, in the question panel, part of why I left this out of the pop-up question is just, again, make sure everybody's comfortable with the question panel. If you want to post your ideas or your answer to that, please feel free to do so. I have posted, again, a link to Fritz's site with the resources page in particular. And I think, Fritz, someone tried, I think Aaron tried to download that long URL you provided on the drawdown strategy and did not have luck with that. So I actually just downloaded the spreadsheet. I think it's the cash flow model spreadsheet. Hopefully I downloaded the right one and put that in the handouts tab.
Yeah, you know what I'll do here is after I get done sharing my screen, when we get to the Q&A, I'll throw it into the chat box real quick, and I assume they want the drawdown strategy. Is that the link they were looking for? Yeah, I'll paste in the drawdown strategy link in the chat box once I get done sharing my screen and we move to the Q&A. So I'll put that in there when I turn off my screen. Okay.
Yeah, great. And I will also post it in the question panel. There are actually two different lanes and GoToWebinar.
Okay.
Happy to do it. Okay, great. Let me just pull up the question panel, and I'm sure we got lots of answers to the last question. Almost everybody said E, I think, with an emphasis on C from John. I agree. I'll just share. It's funny. I'm sure we've all known people that have retired either really what seems to be really early or semi-early, as I would kind of categorize Fritz. And my father-in-law retired at age 55 as well. I would just say that it's funny. I thought about retiring early when I was in my 30s. I was sort of a pre-fire guy. I was a disruptor, Fritz, and I had no idea, right? But so I worked really, really hard and thought, geez, I'd like to retire when I'm 40, and I tested it, like you said, and I think that's a great recommendation. And I spent a few months sort of golfing on my own because no one at my age at 40, right? Everybody's head down working, and as you should. And but anyway, I got an early taste that I don't know that this is right for me. But I will share that one of my good friends retired at age 46, and he had a plan. And he was super busy, got very involved in a nonprofit, and gosh, 15 years later, remains very involved in nonprofits 15, 16 years later, and he has a purpose. He has a purpose. So anyway, not to preach, but I think it just to reaffirm what you mentioned, couldn't agree more. All right, well, let's get firing away with questions. Bear with me one second. And let me scroll down. We have a very full question box. Folks are sharing sort of their bucket list from Frank. He hopes to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. I'm with you, brother.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'll go ahead and pull up that drawdown strategy post, and then I'll go back onto sharing so that people can see it. So I'll do that while you're talking. Okay.
Okay. All right. And just I'll start with a comment from Louise. Louise, good to see you on. From the non-financial side, I always suggest developing a healthy aging plan. I love that. If the client doesn't already have one, healthcare costs in retirement can be reduced by living a health-focused lifestyle. So true, and needs to be included in any retirement spending plan. By the way, I'm someone that has 2 gym memberships plus Peloton. So I need to build that in, Louise. But Fritz, please feel free to comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to do this at the same time. I can't multitask. Give me a quick summary. I'm pasting in the drawdown link here as well.
Yeah, we'll wait. That's
And
no worries.
let me show my screen, and I'll pull that one up. So hopefully you guys can see now. This is the drawdown strategy post. Can you see that, Tom?
Oh, okay. Yep. We have
Okay.
hyphens in between. I
Yeah,
think
it's
that's the
hyphens
difference.
and a link is in there. But if you look down through here, and then I'll go to the Q&A. This basically shows our asset allocation. It showed
Gotcha.
our tax status before tax, obviously big problem like most baby boomers with way too much in before tax. It showed tax location, right? You got some assets that are best suited for after tax versus Roth versus before tax. What are we going to do first? And here's the Roth conversions. Oops. Okay, I'm getting a page unresponsive. There we go. The bucket strategy. So I won't get into that, but the link is there for you. And I apologize for multitasking and not answer. So summarize the question, and I'll stop sharing my page.
Just Louise essentially was talking about healthy aging, trying to make sure
Huge.
lifestyle and.
I cannot reiterate enough the importance of fitness. I've written many posts on the importance of fitness, and I cannot reiterate that enough. Absolutely. I go to the gym. I do spin. I hike every day. I am very focused on fitness. And, you think about what's the goal of early retirement? It's to get as many healthy years of living as you can, right? Well, what's the goal of if you stay fit? You're going to get more years on the back end, hopefully, of healthy living. So to me, maximizing the amount of good, healthy living that you can get in retirement, enjoyable years. We've worked our entire lives to be here. Fitness is just going to extend it on the backside, and it's huge. If you haven't read Younger Next Year, I really encourage you to read Younger Next Year, Dr. Crowley and somebody else. It's written by 2 authors. Fantastic book. I read that about 6 months before I retired, and it really, I've always been into fitness, but it will really motivate you to make fitness a priority in retirement. So yeah, I'm spot on with that comment.
Okay, great. By the way, Sam, good to see you on, and Sam likes the 1 o'clock Eastern time. Folks, if you want to post in the question panel, do you like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock Eastern? I try to mix it up to accommodate everybody. Good comment from Frederick asking why retire at age 55. I like work and enjoy helping my clients. That's your perspective. If that works for you, I tend to agree, but Fritz, right? I think you would share that.
Yeah, I think, the way I look at
Well, Fritz, we lost you there, I think.
it, and I'm going to go ahead and pay. I wrote another one into the chat box. This is the art where this presentation and everything. That's a good one to have. I think when to retire is totally a personal decision. And some people love their jobs. They love their work. They get motivation from it. That's great. The people that I worry about are the people that keep working even though they don't have to. The financials say they're good, and the only reason that they are is because it's the fear of the unknown, right? Retirement's a big change. We've all seen people you have a 40% higher rate of depression post-retirement than pre-retirement. It's a big change, and people that don't retire strictly because of their fear of that transition, man, you need to be talking to those clients and really help them prepare for that transition. Because to me, again, I'm biased. It's one person's opinion, but to give up some years of really experiencing life without having to have that obligation of work just because you're concerned about the transition, those are the ones I would really challenge on their assumption to keep working. For those that just love it and they want to work because they want to work, no problem. Hey, everybody's free to make their own decisions. Having retired at age 55, I'm now 58. I have zero regrets about my decision. We are loving life. My energy's just we're loving life. I could go on and on about it, but no regrets at all. It's been great. So
That's great. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a personal decision, and
Yep.
it's funny. I will share. I'm one of those anxious ones that worries about money, but hopefully I'll get there. A few questions from Scott and Dana about annuities. Did you consider whether it's fixed annuities, guaranteed, income
Yep.
riders off of annuities? What did you look at
Yep.
for annuities, or have
Yep.
you done
Great
any
question.
posts
Great
on
question.
that?
I've done a few posts on them. I've written, 6 years times probably 300 posts. So I've got a couple of annuities. In my case, again, everything is tailored to the client. I've got a pretty healthy pension, and my view is, given that I've got a healthy pension and a low withdrawal rate, I'm okay letting everything float in equities. I think the longer term return potential in equities is better than annuities, especially given the current low interest rate environment. That said, for somebody that doesn't have any pension at all, having a baseline annuity floor to cover some percentage of their basic necessities, certainly not a bad idea. In our case, the only annuity that I would consider, and I'm waiting for interest rates a little bit because we're not in a hurry, would be a deferred annuity as a longevity risk. Buy something maybe in my early 60s that matures in my early 80s, maybe a 20-year deferral, just as a longevity hedge. Because there aren't a lot of things you can do as a longevity hedge, and annuities are obviously a very good tool for that. But so that's my view on it. I'm not against them in certain situations. I think clients have to recognize the expenses related to them. They're not cheap, and you're giving up control of your money. And in a low interest rate environment, you could argue that there are potentially better things you could do for returns. My view.
Yeah, your new best friend Wade. Wade is
Yep.
many years of research on that. Plus, I'd add reverse mortgages. I've worked with
Yep. Yep.
Wade on that a bit, but
Yep.
that's a discussion for another day. Interesting on the net worth statement. Frederick is sharing that the CFP. I'm guessing you mean the CFP board has a template for the net worth statement for clients. It separates assets by tax category.
Hmm.
I'd love to. I'll put it out there for those of you listening. If you can comment back in the question panel, how many of you really use the net worth statement as a key part of your financial planning? And how after you do it initially in the original discovery, how often do you go back? Let me rephrase that question. Assuming you do that, how often do you go back and reference that net worth statement or update it? I'd be really curious to know. Jeff was asking, so I think I got Dana's question. Jeff was asking, Fritz, why do you kind of worry about tracking your spending on a go-forward basis? Why not look back on the financial records for the past year? Again, I think sort of your Capital One strategy is how you handle that, but please feel free to comment on that.
Yeah, I guess what comes to my mind when I think about on a go forward basis would be setting up some kind of a budget and knowing I'm able to spend a certain amount in my budget each month. I To be honest, I just don't like tracking stuff, and to set up a budget and then track actuals against that each month, that's just too much work. I don't want to spend time on a computer in my retirement. So to me, the only purpose that I'm tracking my spending is to make sure that we don't exceed our safe withdrawal rate. And the easiest way I could come up with to do that was to set up this automatic paycheck. So the only control we have is don't spend what's not in your checking account. As long as we have money in our checking account, we're free to spend. And I know I'm within my safe withdrawal rate. It doesn't get any easier than that. So that's how we track it on a current status. I still think there's got to be some kind of a macro check, which is where the annual review comes in. But that's how I handle it, because to me it was the simplest mechanism to achieve the objective.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like it, and I think simpler, at times absolutely equals better. By the way, I love the. I was making some notes. The interviews that you did with people in their 80s.
Yeah.
Do you have any of that in video form, or was it more
You
just
know,
taking notes kind of thing?
I can share that. Let me pull up my it's really cool. Let me just do this one retirement question. Sorry to hold this won't take but a second. What I did, this was totally spontaneous, and it basically, um, okay, share screen. You should see my screen now. It all came about. This was the first post I wrote in the series. I was taking pictures, and I was taking a picture of this barn when my truck was there, and these guys, I saw this license plate, and I was, a couple months away from retirement, and I just walked up to these guys. I started talking to them. They're a nice old Southern couple, hey, how y'all doing? So I just spontaneously pulled out my phone and I hit the record button. I told them what I was going to do, obviously, and I said, hey, I got an idea, and I literally pulled out my phone, hit the record button, and I saved that recording. And if you look here on the post, you can literally click it here and you can hear them answer the question. So I did
Hmm.
that um, very much spontaneously, but I loved the idea, so I went with it. And there's a whole link. I don't know if anyway, there's 8 or 9 of these that I built this whole series about. Yeah, here's the second one. I did it with this guy, Ed. He's 82. Um, and then I put record. So they're all embedded in those articles. And I'll share this article on the chat comment as well, so you guys can have it there.
Great,
So
great. Yeah,
that's
I
how I
think
did it.
that's very neat, very neat. Thank goodness for
Yep,
technology, right? Um,
indeed.
all right, Frank is asking, wouldn't you want to subtract at least an estimated tax amount from the tax deferred accounts first before applying the SWR?
Great question. Great question. You can do it either way. You can either subtract it from the assets or you can include it in your spending. That's the way I look at it. Tax is a burden. Obviously, if you've got $1 million, it's all pre-tax. Let's just make it easy. Say you're in a 20% tax bracket, you got 800,000 you can spend. You can either look at it and say, I've got 800,000 to spend, or you can say, I've got a million to spend, but I got a $200,000 tax expense. I chose the latter because to me, it's easier. But yeah, you're valid. You can do it either way.
Great. Next from Leonard asking, what, if anything, are you using for your assumption for legacy to, I think you have one daughter, I believe.
Yep. Yep. We are not intentionally leaving a number in there. We didn't run this thing out and say, okay, we want $1 million at the end to pass to her. That said, I'm using like a 3.25% safe withdrawal rate. So chances are there's going to be a good chunk of money there, but we're not intentionally underspending to leave that. We're just going to see where things roll.
Okay. Frederick is asking, you mentioned new retirement. I'm just trying to type that in now. Fritz, I think it's newretirement.com, right? Their calculator. I'm
Yes.
familiar with that
Yep.
site as well. And get his name, Steve, or the founder.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, so Frederick, I'll post that. And again, there are a bunch of calculators out there. There's no question about it. But we'll post that in the chat or question panel, newretirement.com, newretirement.com. So we'll get that out there in a minute.
Yep.
And again, hopefully these other links are working. Go ahead, Fritz, you were going to mention
I,
something.
I, I was just gonna say I wrote a post I did a review of that of a new retirement as well, and I'll go ahead and paste that in the comments as well. The reason I like it, number one, they never stop improving it. I mean, most people build a calculator and they kind of let it go. They've done a really good job of continually enhancing it. It now and I'm objective. I'm an affiliate with theirs. So if you guys click on this link in this article, I'll throw in here. If you would sign up with them and become a paid, consultant or client of theirs, I would get a little kicker. But that doesn't influence me. The reason that I agreed to be an affiliate of theirs is because I believe in their product. It's really good. So I'm putting it in here now. It should be in the chat comment. There's an article that I wrote that kind of talks about why I like their calculator and what it is about it that I like. The other thing that as a certified financial planner or retirement planner, you guys should be aware of these guys. They offer the gamut of it's a really innovative business model. They will do, hey, doesn't cost you a dime. You can use our basic model calculator, which is all I ever used, and it was more than sufficient. You can go to the next level, which is a paid subscription to the calculator, which is cheap. It offers you some enhanced tax capability. You can do a one-time retirement readiness checkup for a couple $100, or you can do like 3 different levels of advisor service. starting from very inexpensive to the more traditional, 1% asset under management model. So they are really innovative in the way they're addressing the model of retirement planning. If you don't know about these guys, you want to study them just as a competitor as much as anything else. They're very innovative in the way they're approaching your clients.
Yeah, I've had conversations with them in years past about trying to collaborate, and I know he drives a lot of activity through podcasts, educational content, etc. Give me 1 second here. I'm just trying to catch up with questions. Here we go. Jeff, kind of back to the tracking issue. Jeff actually looks at his bank, credit card, etc. statements to calculate how much he spent in the past year. That seems to be easier for him versus trying to enter every new expense for a year. Why do you recommend, kind of your approach versus his, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly viable. The problem is, what about property taxes? I bet you don't pay them on your credit card. There you can follow bank statements. To me, I wanted to make sure we were capturing everything. I knew it was a one-time deal. So it didn't matter whether I used a credit card, whether I used cash, whether I wrote a check. I just wanted to capture everything that we did. A lot of stuff is ACH, right? Now, granted, you'd get that if you went through your bank statement, but I just wanted to just manually look at everything we spent to really have a grounded estimate. You can do it a variety of ways. I don't have a preference one way or the other.
Frederick's commenting about Social Security previously used to send you, a written estimate annually of your projected benefits, etc. Now you must go online and look it up online. So I'll just share, I've been trying to get someone to come on and actually show just a basic intro to the SSA.gov site, how you open up an account, where you find the information. Let me know if that's of interest to all of you listening. I'm still trying to source that, and certainly would love to know how much of interest you might have in that. Cynthia's asking, Fritz, what was the name of the Wall Street Journal book that you just mentioned?
Yeah, let me be rude and drop my headset for a second because it's right over there on my bookshelf and I can actually show it to you. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. This is it. Wall Street Journal, Complete Retirement Guidebook, How to Plan It, Live It, and Enjoy It. Rufinock and Green are the authors.
Oh, I like Roof. Yeah, he's very good. Rufinock as Rufenbach, or what's this? I forget.
Rufinock. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I look at a lot of his columns. Yeah. Okay. Let me just keep scrolling through. Sorry about that. Yeah. Frank is sharing that he too did an early retirement and sort of got bored and then had to go back and find something else. Interesting. Rhonda's sharing that part of her onboarding process is collecting Social Security admin statements. Interesting. We're just going through that ourselves. Give me 1 second. Apologies. I'm just trying to scroll through. It's interesting. A lot of people prefer 1 o'clock. Thank you for that feedback. Okay. As Frank is sharing, as part of the process around healthcare expenses, clients should plan for long-term care, plan their living so that they can stay at home as long as possible, but then plan for the expenses or look into LTCI, of course, if they can't afford to self-fund. Couldn't agree more on that. Have you looked into LTCI at all, Fritz?
I did. I wrote an article about that as well. We decided to self-insure, and I wrote out the logic as to why. The summary was, if I took the insurance premiums that we would have paid and instead we invest them and I put some kind of a conservative return assumption, my break-even point was at like age 82. And okay, so I run the risk if I end up in a nursing home before age 82. But if we're 82 or older, as long as the stay is, less than 3 years, which I think is slightly longer than average, we'd be better off to self-insure. And if we don't need it, it goes into legacy. So that I wrote a whole article about the math that I did. We decided to self-insure.
Having said that, was there one carrier or one policy that you thought was better than others?
I didn't get that detailed. I was basically trying to get some reasonable cost estimates to plug into my comparison model. I didn't get to the point. I had an insurance agent at the time that was trying to sell me on the long-term care, and I said, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me do some math, and that's when I did it. So I didn't shop a lot of policies. I think he was independent. He had 2 or 3 different policies he was talking about, and I used, I kind of used those as a baseline for the insurance costs.
All right, Cynthia's asking, is 30% of your annual salary in retirement benefit considered a good or healthy amount?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. 30%, is that
Yeah,
a 30% savings rate? Does it read?
30% in your retirement considered a good health. Yeah, Cynthia, perhaps you could come back and comment on that. I'm not sure I understand that.
Is it a savings rate?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Aaron, what are your thoughts on longevity risk in regards to
Well, let me
paying
just
for
speak about,
assisted
let me
living?
speak about savings.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the decision to self-insure. I think, certainly a fair amount of people end up having to pay for assisted living. My father's in an assisted living home now. He's self-insured. It's definitely a factor. Again, the focus on keeping yourself fit is one thing you can do about it, but it is a risk that all of us have, and you have to decide, what's the financial impact of that under either buying insurance for it or self-insuring, and you have to help your clients work through that math.
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure of Cynthia's question. I'll sort of say related. It's interesting. I've been just slightly stumbling on other personal finance sites and bloggers. And it's interesting. There's a couple out there. I won't name names that talks about their journey, and they retired early, and part of the whole FIRE movement. That's great. God bless you. And talked about very aggressive savings. Well, they were lucky enough to be federal employees, had a pretty generous benefits package, et cetera. Um, and I guess part of why I share this is, like, realistically, they got lucky with a few real estate investments that came in early, et cetera. So I think realistically, I mean, what do you think in terms of the question and all that ramble is? What do you think
Savings rate.
a percentage? Yeah,
Yeah.
as far as a reasonable savings rate.
Yeah, and I'm glad you came back to that, because I was going to answer it assuming that's what the question was. I think it's an important topic to have. Um, our personal savings rate, when I first started, I didn't know anything about this stuff. I just put in enough to get the match on my 401k. I think it was 6%. As I learned more about it, the other thing I did, 6% is way insufficient. 10% in my view is way insufficient. With people not having pensions anymore, Social Security potentially being more at risk for people in their, let's say, 40s or under, I would encourage people to never save less than 15%. What we did is we started at 6, but very quickly, as I got my first promotion, all of it went into savings. We kept our spending limits the same to avoid lifestyle inflation. And by the time my last couple of years of work, we were saving 50 or 60%, but we weren't sacrificing anything because we just didn't let our lifestyle inflate. We still drove decent cars. We went on nice vacations every year. We didn't sacrifice. I think you've got to find the balance between enjoying today but being responsible for tomorrow. And if talking to my daughter, she's 26, 15 to 20%. If you're not there today, take 90% of your pay raises and increase your savings rate. Don't increase your spending until you get there. That's my recommendation. You can take a couple of years to get there, but try to get to 15 to 20% minimum.
Yeah, you remind me of that's a principle. I've had Melissa and Kevin on from the Savvy Life. All they focus on, Brits, they help clients and financial planners and their clients nationwide on really managing their cash flow and their spending. And that's one of the principles they talk about. By the way, that's webinar replays on my site again. The Savvy Life, Melissa Tassetti, Kevin Gibbons. I recommend that if you've never looked at it. They're really good at what they do. That's all they focus on. They've been doing it for 9 years, I believe. Interesting question from Aaron. I'll just add my comments about, have you ever thought about Medicaid planning, the 5-year spend down? I helped do that about 2 years ago with my father, Aaron. It definitely, it was a lifesaver's not the right term, but it certainly was an important aspect. But Fritz, have you ever looked into the Medicaid spend down and what's involved with that?
At this point I'm 58, so I mean I'm aware of it, but I haven't really spent a lot of time on it yet until we get closer.
I will say this, absolutely 100%. I'm a big fan of, you might be surprised given the name of my program here, the Financial
Mhm.
Experts Network. I think I have a decent amount of knowledge around a lot of these topics. I don't ever hold myself out as an expert. Even the things that I've done, I always say, and I'm trying to be humble, that, here's our experience. But I will reaffirm that having an elder law attorney who is really experienced in Medicaid spend downs, he was worth his weight in the few $1,000s that we spent on that. It took step by step, took my brother through it. So anyway, Aaron, there's my 2 cents. Interesting on the net worth statements. Some people absolutely critical. Heidi sharing that she updates it every 2 to 3 years. It's part of their financial planning program. Most folks listening, Fritz, they use a financial planning program that's like new retirement. They would probably argue better, but good to see. Great, Betty Lynn. Good to see you on. Reviews the net worth statement as a tax management tool. Love that. We will try to. I will try to get Dana the CFP net worth template. All right. I think retirement meaning pension. That was a Cynthia question with that 30%. But hopefully we addressed your question there, Cynthia. Sorry about that. Heidi is sharing that she uses Quicken to track expenses. Easy to use if you download from bank and credit cards. I will tell you, we've been trying for a couple years to use Mint. I'd like to have, if anybody out there wants to be my guest on a session where you share tips on how to use Mint or something like that, I would be so delighted to have you. We do it, but we just don't do anything with it. And at some point, hopefully, we will. We're still. I haven't given up yet. Okay. Here's a question from Cynthia. Fritz, does the $10,000 that you put into Capital One for lumpy spending count towards your SWR for the year?
Yes, we basically let's use the 40,000 that I used earlier just as an example. If I've determined that I can do a $40,000 safe withdrawal rate, I'll take 10 of it, put it in the lumpy spending bucket. I'll take the 30,000 that remains and set up my paycheck based on that. So 3,000 divided by, or 30,000 divided by 12 months, whatever that is, $2,500 a month. That would be my monthly paycheck. At the end of the year, if we've not spent that 10,000 that was lumpy, it doesn't matter. I put another 10,000 in, because the very nature of lumpy spending is it may be 5 years before I need to replace the roof, but when I need to replace that roof, it's 15,000, right? And I might need to do a car in the same time. So it's an accrual, and I add 10,000 to it, actually 12,000 every January 1st or every January, regardless of what the balance is that's in there.
Okay, great. And by the way, I'm just so everybody listening, would you say that Fritz is sort of like your typical client? Is he sort of your representative of your typical client, or is he a little more educated than your typical client? I certainly would welcome your comments on that. I have my guess, right? Would you like, and by the way, would you like your clients to be as educated as Fritz and as would you find that helpful, or would that be more of a nuisance than anything, to be blunt? I would think you would like an educated client that really understands drawdown rates, that understands the whole idea of letting emotion, stay to the side, letting you all do your job in terms of helping to manage their affairs so that your clients can, live their retirement life. Some clients don't track their spending, and convincing them to do so is a waste of time. I just take their earnings minus known savings and taxes and use that as their probable lifestyle budget. Anything wrong with that? That's from Sam. Thanks for the candor, Sam. Fritz?
I'm sure a lot of you have to deal with that. And, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to have some kind of basis to do it. And if they don't have any idea and you've got no other information, that's probably the best you can do. I would argue that it's far from optimal, obviously, but I can empathize with the challenge you guys face, and I think that's as good a it's better than just throwing a number out there, I guess. But
And Dean is commenting, assuming the 20% annual savings includes any employer contribution, so it's likely you are the individual is saving 10 to 15% of your own with some
no,
employer
no,
contributions.
I was talking about individual savings, any employers above and beyond, the way I look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, your sort of target was 15%, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly, right?
15 to 20 plus the employer. Now again, I retired at age 55, right? But I would argue, I mean, you can do the math. Even if you're trying to retire at a more traditional age 65, do the math. If you're 65, all you have is Social Security, no pension. What would the savings rate have to be? I would bet it would still be, well over 10%, depending on income and spending, blah blah blah. But it takes a lot of money to retire, and there is a retirement crisis. I've written articles about that. The average 401k balance is a couple of 100,000. I mean, it's abysmal, and people are not going to be able to retire. So I really stress a higher number to wake people up that aren't saving anything. Like, oh crap, I've got a problem. Yeah, you got a problem. You don't want to live on Social Security. It's no way to live, and you can't count on being able to work. 60% of people are forced into retirement earlier than they planned. It's not a safe journey to assume I'm just going to keep working and not save because I'm just going to keep working. No, you're not. I mean, you might, but your income's going to be a lot lower if you are able to keep a job. There's an 80-year-old lady that works at our local Wendy's. It breaks my heart. We go through the drive-through, not that often, but we see this 80-year-old lady in there, and I'm thinking to myself, is she working because she loves working at Wendy's, or is she working because she has to? And if it's the
Right.
latter, how sad is that, to be in your 80s and have to work at a Wendy's because you weren't responsible through your life? I mean, that to me is what you want to avoid. So, hey, go high, again, plan
Yeah.
conservative and have
Right.
surprises to the good.
Yeah. Yep. 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 Frederick is asking, it was Capital One accounts. It's
Yeah.
Capital One credit card, Frederick. So
It's,
it's not a capital,
it's Capital
right?
One. It's Capital One 360. It's a bank account that
Okay.
Capital One runs. Yep.
I see.
Yep.
Okay. Um, Rhonda, I'd be curious, you use eMoney and you have your clients share their spending with us. Does eMoney have an interface to something like Quicken or Mint, which is owned by Quicken, or YNAB or whatever? Do they have an interface to, that kind of technology built into eMoney? And anybody out there, I'd be curious to know that. I'd love to see that. If so, I don't think Money Guide Pro does, to the best of my knowledge. Okay, great. Yeah, I would say, Cynthia, if you're saving 32% of your annual salary in monthly benefits, from a pension standpoint, is 32% of your annual salary in monthly benefits considered good? If you're, I
So
see,
basically,
if your
if you're making
pension,
100,000 and your pension's paying 30,000, I guess that's the argument. I
I
mean,
think that's it.
yeah,
That's it. That's it.
you can't answer any one question without looking at the overall, how much do they have
Right.
saved, what they're spending. But obviously, the longer you work in a place, the more your pension's going to be, if you still have a pension and it continues to accrue. Um, in my case, I did 33 years at a company, and my final pension, and they discontinued the pension, but I was grandfathered in, so it continued to accrue and it continued to grow. It wasn't frozen. So after 33 years, I think my final pension, high level numbers, was around 35 to 40% of my income, something like that. So that's a decent number. If you're talking 30% of somebody has a 30% pension, that's a decent number.
Okay. Derek is sharing that Derek, I'm going to ask you if you want to come on and do a session with me sometime on Mint. It's his go-to recommendation. He gives his clients an expense template to set up the program, link accounts, set budgets, then go. Derek, I'd love to see that. I really would. And yeah, Meg's agreeing. Spending is always a challenge for clients. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think we're kind of getting, give me 1 second, Fritz. Okay. Yeah, Meg, I'd love to see that spending tool within eMoney. I mean, I'd love to see how that works. Derek, happy to look at that in the fall with you, doing the Mint thing. we will follow up. Does the 15 to 20% savings include both spouses or each individual savings? So is that from a household perspective or individual, or is that not sort of one and the
I would
same?
say household.
Yeah, okay. Um, okay. Okay. All right. Well, great. I'd love to see what eMoney does. I have a few folks. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Fritz. It's a pretty neat
No.
financial planning program. It's been around for years. Fidelity bought it up a few years ago, and it really was a leader in the whole aggregation side of it. So you could have multiple accounts everywhere, and they bring that all together. But within the heart of it
Okay.
is their financial planning program. It has cash flow. It's cash flow based, plus it has a goals based orientation as well, so you can kind of pick and choose, but very, very strong program. Uh, with that, I think, Fritz, believe it or not, we got through all the questions. You got through all the questions.
Good.
I did the easy part, and certainly delighted to have you here, and would love to have you back. You've certainly gone into a lot of very interesting topics in great detail, so kudos to you, and glad you're high speed. You have high speed internet in northern Georgia, I'm guessing.
Yeah, even out here in the mountains, I could tell you a 10-minute story on that, but I won't. But let me just say, I'm the very last cabin on the high-speed line, and I couldn't have been happy. Total luck, but I couldn't have been happier that we pulled that one off. So I actually have a standalone building you see behind me. This is my writing studio, I call it, and we built this after I retired. So I'm actually physically removed from our cabin. Our cabin's right out that window. So if you see me looking out there, I'm looking at our cabin. So yeah, I ran the cable directly into my writing workshop here, and it's perfect. A great place to pursue my passions in retirement. So it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Great. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Fritz, so much on behalf of everybody, getting a lot of positive comments, and glad to have you. And thanks everybody for listening. I encourage you to visit financialexpertsnetwork.com, check under upcoming webinars. Certainly want you to look at all the sessions. We have some great sessions again with Jim on Thursday, and the next week we have ethics CE for those of you that are members. Wanted to take advantage of that on Tuesday with Jeff Ratner. Have Steve Mancini back on Wednesday, who's awesome, an estate plan lawyer, talking about the Biden tax proposals that I'm concerned about. I'm sure you are too, and what you might do about it today. At least start thinking about it. And then we have the art of settlement planning. Pretty interesting with Joe DeGangi, who's a certified financial planner who's focused just on helping people that have a large settlement, be it from personal injury cases, lottery winners. I think it's really neat, and I encourage you to check that out. So with that, again, thanks everyone for listening, and really, as always, please participate in the survey. Welcome your feedback there. Wish you a great rest of the week. And Fritz, again, thank you, and I will be in touch. Okay?
Thank you, Tom. It's a real honor to be on your show. I appreciate it. Thanks.
My pleasure.